Hello, my name is Cat and welcome to my guide to the Aztec settlement minigame. I also have a separate video on the Aztec settlement itself, so if you are interested in that, there is a link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment, and if you're interested in more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. This video is split into 5 parts with timestamps in the description if you want to skip ahead. The minigame is based on the classic video game Minesweeper. You have an 11 by 7 grid of unopened tiles, and for each new game a given amount of goods are randomly hidden throughout the grid. The goal of the game is to find as many goods as possible before using up all your attempts. To open a tile, you simply click or tap on it. When you open a tile, it can be one of 3 types: a goods tile, a numbered tile, or an empty tile. No matter which type, you will always use up 1 attempt by opening it. That means that when you know or think you know a tile has a good hidden behind it, you open it immediately. So let's quickly go over the different types. The main one, the one you are after, is the goods tile. If you open this tile, you will automatically pick up 1 additional good. A tile with a number indicates how many of the 8 adjacent tiles are goods tiles. A tile is adjacent if it's 1 tile away, either up or down, left or right, or in any of the 4 corners. So, if a tile has the number 1, that means that 1 and only 1 out of these 8 tiles is a goods tile. Or if it's a 3, that means that 3 out of these 8 tiles are goods tiles. An empty tile means that none of the 8 adjacent tiles are goods tiles. However, if you do hit an empty tile, all adjacent empty and numbered tiles will also be opened. This means that hitting an empty tile will give you a lot of information, so it's actually one of the most valuable tiles to hit. When you have used up all your attempts, you can choose to collect the goods you have found or to pay diamonds for additional attempts. I would strongly advise against buying extra attempts. They are not worth it. If you want to buy the extra goods, you are much better off doing so when unlocking technologies. Another way of getting additional goods is to boost your collection from the minigame. This will double the amount of goods you collect, costing 5 diamonds for each good you buy. This might be worth it early on in the settlement to unlock expansions quicker, but for technologies you will get the same diamond price if you buy the missing goods then, so you should only boost goods for expansions. So, with the mechanics out of the way, let me quickly mention a very simple practice tool I made. This is a simple website where you can practice playing the minigame without having to use any of your in-game attempts. To use the website, you simply start playing by clicking on any tile on the board. You can select how many goods are hidden and how many attempts you have. But if you do run out of attempts, you can of course continue playing. In-game, this would cost you diamonds, but in the tool, it's of course free. Now, let's get into some strategies on how to find as many goods as possible. The basic strategy is simple. Step 1. Open tiles until you unlock a big area of empty tiles. This will give you a lot of information to work on. The best way to achieve this is to first try the corner tiles, and then if you still don't have an open area, try the middle tiles of the top and bottom edges. I will explain why these tiles are best later in the video. When you have found an empty area, move on to step 2 immediately. Do not open more of these tiles yet. Step 2. Find as many goods around this open area as possible, using the mechanics of the game to determine, when possible, where the goods are hidden. You will often have 50-50 situations where a good can be hidden behind one of 2 tiles. In these scenarios, try to open as many certain goods as you can first, and then try your luck with 50-50s. Step 3. If you have more attempts, go back to step 1, choosing a tile as far away from the open area as possible. I would add a small condition to this step. If you only have a few attempts left, and if you have already unlocked a tile with a few unclaimed goods around it, it might be better to try your luck around this tile instead of hunting for new open areas. I usually do this if I have 3 or fewer attempts remaining. The next topic I want to talk about is some common patterns that will help you speed up solving the minigame, give you a better understanding of how it works, and show how tiles interact with each other. To illustrate these patterns, I'm using screenshots from the practice website I mentioned earlier. The first pattern you should look for when you have unlocked an area is the corner 1 tiles. This is when you have a numbered tile with a 1 on it and only 1 adjacent unopened tile. In this screenshot you see that we have 3 1 tiles where each only have 1 adjacent unopened tile. So that means the only place a good can be hidden adjacent to these tiles is in these 3 locations. In general, this can be extended to all the different numbered tiles. If you have any numbered tile with the same amount of unopened tiles around it, the goods have to be hidden behind these tiles. Here we see an example where a 2 tile is on the edge of the grid, with empty tiles on one side and unopened tiles on the other. So the only place the goods can be hidden are behind these 2 tiles. There are 2 common patterns that combine to make most other patterns. The first one is the 1-1 pattern. The 1-1 pattern is when you have 2 adjacent 1 tiles starting from an edge. This can be the actual edge or other empty or numbered tiles acting as an edge. In this scenario, we know that the third unopened tile from the edge is not a goods tile. We know this because the 1 tile on the edge must have a goods tile adjacent in one of these 2 spots, which means the second 1 tile will also have a goods tile adjacent in one of these spots. And that means there cannot be a goods tile adjacent here. The other base pattern is the 1-2 pattern. In this pattern, you have a 1 tile followed by a 2 tile with empty or numbered tiles on one side and unopened tiles on the other side. In this pattern, we see the opposite of the 1-1 pattern. We know that the third tile over must be a goods tile. We know this because the 1 tile only has 1 goods tile adjacent, which means that only 1 out of these 2 tiles are goods tiles. That means that for the 2 tile to have 2 adjacent goods, the third tile over has to be a goods tile as well. In this example, we see both a vertical and horizontal example of this, and in both cases, the third tile over has to be a goods tile. We can't determine yet where the other goods tile is, and often it's a 50-50, but we know for certain the third tile over is a goods tile. Building on the 1-1 pattern, we have 2 other very common patterns. The first is a 1-2-1 pattern. This is where you have a 1 tile, followed by a 2 tile, and then another 1 tile, with empty or numbered tiles on one side and unopened tiles on the other. In this pattern, we can apply the 1-2 pattern rule in both directions. In this direction, the third tile over has to be a goods tile, and in the other direction, the third tile over has to be a goods tile as well. This means that the only possible solution is that the goods are adjacent to the 2 1 tiles. The other common pattern that builds off of the 1-2 pattern is the 1-2-2-1 pattern. In this pattern, you have a 1 tile followed by 2 2 tiles followed by another 1 tile. On one side you have empty or numbered tiles, and on the other you have unopened tiles. Again, this can be horizontally or vertically. And using the 1-2 rule again, the third tile over in this direction has to be a good, and the third tile over in this direction also has to be a good. So, the only solution to the 1-2-2-1 pattern is that the goods are hidden next to the 2 2 tiles. In this same example, we also have another common pattern. If you have a line of 1 tiles with one goods location already known, you know that the next goods tile will be 3 tiles away from the known goods tile, or in other words, there will be 2 tiles between goods. The logic behind this pattern is simple. The first 1 tile already has a goods tile adjacent, so it blocks these 2 tiles from being goods tiles. That means that for this 1 tile, the only remaining possible location is here. This doesn't necessarily need to be in a straight line. You can generalize this pattern and apply it to a lot of situations. So if you have a few 1 tiles next to each other and one or more of them already has an adjacent good, have a look at which tiles this eliminates as possibilities for the other tiles. You'll often see that you're only left with 1 possible tile for one of the other 1 tiles. Another interesting pattern is when you have a 3 tile in a corner with 2 1 tiles next to it. In this case, 3 out of these 5 tiles are goods tiles. However, because of this 1 tile, only one of these 2 tiles can be a goods tile. Likewise, because of this 1 tile, only one of these 2 tiles can be a goods tile. That means that for the 3 tile to have 3 adjacent goods, this tile has to be a goods tile. We don't necessarily know where the other 2 goods are, but in this specific example we can. If the tile next to the 1 tile is another 1 tile on an edge, we see that we have a 1-1 pattern that I have mentioned before. And if you recall, if we have a 1-1 pattern on the edge, the third tile over cannot be a goods tile, which means the only remaining place out of these 2 is this tile. In this example, it's exactly the same case in the other direction. And here we see an example where the 1-1 pattern doesn't have to be on the actual edge, it can use other numbered or empty tiles acting as edges instead. You can often use the same logic if you swap out the 3 tile with a 2 tile, but only if you know that one of these 2 tiles has to be a goods tile. Then it has to be here. The last thing I want to talk about regarding patterns is that when you have found a goods tile, you can subtract that from any adjacent numbered tile and use this new number when trying to find patterns. In this example, if we subtract 1 from this 2 tile, we see that we have a 1, 2, 1 pattern, which means that these 2 tiles have to be goods tiles. And here we see that both of these are goods. Of course, there are a lot of patterns and I could go on forever, but this video has to end sometimes. But with these basic patterns, I hope you get a better understanding of how this game works and how you can speed up playing the minigames. The last thing I want to talk about is the data behind my suggested starting strategy. Now, I want to say that I am an engineer, not a mathematician, so there is probably a mathematical way to determine the best starting strategy, but I went about it empirically. So, what I did is that I randomly generated a bunch of games, in fact over 500,000 games in total, and for each game calculated how good each opening click is. My definition of how good a click is how many goods are adjacent to the area you unlock on your first click. If you are interested in the details on how I calculated and programmed this, I'll be happy to answer in the comments, but I won't talk about it in the video itself. What I will talk about is my results. Here we see results from 100,000 simulated games, each for boards with 9, 10, 11 and 12 goods respectively. The numbers within the tiles show how many goods on average are adjacent to the area you unlock with your first attempt. What we see here is that the middle tiles on the bottom and top edges actually have a slightly higher score than the corner tiles. The difference is not big, but it is slightly higher. So you might wonder why I say the corners are better, and here's my answer to that. This next image shows what percentage of the unopened adjacent tiles are goods tiles. What this means is that while you unlock slightly fewer goods in the corners, they are much easier to find. Of course, in many situations you will be able to determine all the goods around an area anyway, but because the difference in number of adjacent goods between these middle tiles and the corner tiles are so small, I feel quite confident in saying that the corner tiles are indeed better. In the end though, as these differences are very small, you will probably not see a noticeable difference in game, so it's up to you which you prefer to use. So, with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like. If you have any questions, make sure to comment. And if you want more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. I have been Minigame, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the future.